Now let's get across the big news of today with my panel, Brian Marlow, President of the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, and barrister Ashita Sethi from Sydney. Brian, Ashita, both of you, thank you very much for your time on the panel tonight. I want to get both of your takes on the topic that we just spoke about with Wesley and with Tony. A new poll has found hardly any Australians seem to rank the voice as their top priority issue that they want to see the federal government working on. Brian, do you agree?
Yeah, well, of course they do. And we're talking about people that are struggling to make their mortgage repayments. They're struggling with rent. They're struggling with the cost of living. They can barely afford bills. Their energy costs have gone through the roof. And they're being asked by, the head of Qantas and massive corporations to push for an unelected advisory body or a voice to Parliament that doesn't actually impact what matters to them, which is their cost of living and being able to make ends meet.
Yeah, Ashita, the poll also found support for the voice has dropped for almost across the board to about 38%. If those numbers remain, it doesn't look as though it will get the nod from Australians on October the 14th, and millions of taxpayer dollars will have been wasted. When people are struggling so much, how do you think that will be received by the Australian public?
Well, that's right, Amanda. About $300 to $400 million have already been spent on the Yes camp. Now, there's a common desire for recognition and improved outcomes for disadvantaged Indigenous peoples of Australia. There's no doubt about that. The issue here really is that when you're looking to make an amendment to our fundamental legal document, that is our founding federal constitution, what you're really doing is that you're intending for there to be legal consequences of this amendment of the same ranking and status as the other branches of government that are described in the Constitution. Now, it's going to make a change to our fundamental system of government in ways that we really cannot anticipate. That's not attractive to the Australian people. The reality is that no one can actually say what this change will result in and, more importantly, whether it will actually lead to the improved outcomes that we are all wanting for the disadvantaged Indigenous peoples of Australia.
And they're just huge sums of money for people who are looking at their own bills and saying, oh, I can't make this work. I also want to ask you both about the bullying tactics we seem to be seeing as a result of this voice debate. This time it's coming out of Vic Health, a Victorian government agency, and it's been funded by the Victorian taxpayer. It has issued a public statement with the CEO fronting it, saying he's voting for the voice because it's good for health. Brian, doesn't this go directly against the guidelines that apply to government employees in situations like these?
Yes, it does. So effectively, in my opinion, they're abusing taxpayer funds and trying to influence a very important referendum that's just around the corner, which they're not meant to do. It goes against every single guideline they have that says that taxpayer-funded groups are not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to go out there now and try and influence the public when it comes to, the next, say, election or a referendum as important as this. If Sandro Di Maio, the CEO who put this together, were out there talking privately or even on social media in his own personal capacity, he's more than okay to do that. But you can't use taxpayer resources through a taxpayer-funded organisation to try and influence the public on something like this. It's atrocious.
Yeah, Ashita, is this just a virtue signal for people who already live in the political bubble, or is it really going to change votes?
Well, Amanda, I think the CEO of Vic Health must know something that even the government doesn't know, and that is how the voice is going to impact health. I think that this is more than virtue signalling. I think it's more than virtue signalling. I think it's really bold. And what concerns me the most about it all is that it's coming from a leader of a government agency, in this particular example, Vic Health, and that can be perceived as quite threatening to the users of the system and that particular service. And it really shouldn't be that way. They should not feel threatened, irrespective of how they're going to vote on the 14th of October.